Hi, baby boomer fans. We are Jackie and Janine, the Pfeiffer sisters, and love to talk about the 1950s, inviting you to reminisce with us as we explore experiences of that decade. Grab your favorite malt or Green River. Make sure you are wide awake and get ready to be inspired about the 1950s. Welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us again. And, I've thought, Jackie, that there might be people who wonder, what are all these crazy pictures that are shown before they see our faces?
They're not exactly crazy. They're very important pictures, and you're going to tell them why.
Yes. Well, they are included in our book, While the Windmill Watched, A Slice of Rural America in the 1950s. And pictures that you saw there were of Jackie and me. And there was some of Dad, some of our Minoka, North Dakota neighbors. And I can't remember what else was there. But those pictures and many more, including recipes and newspaper articles, are included in our book, along with our story. And oh, my goodness, so much more.
Okay, and speaking of book, look in the corner of my screen and you'll see the book of which we were speaking, While the Windmill Watched, A Slice of Rural America in the 1950s. And so, folks, that the 1950s, that's recent history, isn't it? Not too far away. So do check it out. And in the bottom of our screen, do we see the purple banner?
Oh, I forgot to bring that in. I certainly do.
Anyway, it says www.whilethewindmillwatch.com. So go there for all information on the book and about the Fun Chat. This is 53?
53. Yep.
Fun Chat. And so you can see all the previous ones. But in the meantime, those of you who have followed us for almost 2 years on the 1950s Fun Chat might be aware that we began this platform with 2 criteria when selecting guests. That guests were either born during the 1950s or were influenced by that decade. Well, we'll hear from a man who fits the last criterion. Born in 1985 in St. Paul, Minnesota, Tim Baumann is the second of 2 children who grew up in the heart of Wisconsin dairy farm country. His parents were both public educators. But Tim earned a Bachelor of Music education degree from the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire, and taught high school band for 4 years before teaching abroad in Hong Kong for a year. He plays the oboe in the Minot Symphony Orchestra, conducts the Minot Community Concert Band, and is an avid supporter of local vibrancy projects in the Minot, North Dakota community. Now, Tim began working at the International Music Camp in the summer of 2005 as a dorm dean, and he met his wife, Christine, while working there. Well, the couple has served as co-camp directors since 2013. So, Tim, we welcome you to the 1950s Fun Chat.
Mm-hmm. Hey, thanks so much. I really appreciate you inviting me on as a guest.
Oh, well, we're glad to have you. We're just going to go back a little bit in that. First of all, before we get talking about the International Music Camp, what led you to teaching in Hong Kong for a year?
Yeah, great question and a fun chance to get to share. Was teaching in high school band for 4 years, and my wife and I had always wanted to kind of do something overseas. Our vision was that we would get a gig in Germany or Western Europe and kind of live that life of being an expat overseas in Europe. But we went to the job fair, and the right place, right time. Hong Kong was a great match, and then we flew across the Pacific and spent a year teaching there.
Okay. Go ahead, Janine.
What was the number one challenge of teaching band in Hong Kong?
Oh, well, the number one challenge was that I actually didn't teach band. I taught elementary music, which was totally new for me. And it was a great learning opportunity. Turns out that some of the same principles we use when we teach elementary music and high school music are the same. We just package them differently. And so I think the biggest challenge for me was definitely maybe upping the tempo, the pace of like how we transition from subject to subject in my classroom, because I was used to having a little more, with 18-year-old kids, you can really dig into stuff, and with 7-year-old kids, you can't. You got to be a little bit more flexible and kind of bounce just as much as they do.
Oh, yes.
So, but music is an international language. So you have that in common, no matter where you were or are in the world. So, speaking of music, what is the International Music Camp and where is it located?
So the International Music Camp is a summer school of fine arts that's located on the border of Canada and the United States, the International Peace Garden. And that's right on the border, technically, obviously, between the two countries, but North Dakota and Manitoba. And every summer, we welcome about 1,500 to 2,000 campers, young people ages 10 to 19, to participate in 1-week programs that range from everything from band, choir, orchestra, visual arts programs like cartooning, sculpture, painting, dance. There are drama programs. There is just something for everyone at the International Music Camp.
And so, go ahead, Janine.
Yes. How do you find teachers all the time for all of those different areas of the arts?
Yeah, it's a challenge sometimes, but we're really fortunate in that we've got a great a really rich arts community in a lot of the communities that surround us. And then we have folks that come in from across North America. So we really do have a huge variety and spectrum of experiences and opportunities. And, we get all of these ideas and concepts from professionals who are across the country.
Sure. And they volunteer their time?
Nope, they are paid, and we do cover their travel expenses as well. So, we take care of purchasing the plane tickets if someone is going to be flying in. But yeah, they are paid faculty members. Many of them are university professors or professional performing artists, and they choose to give a week of their summer. They do get paid, but it is also, it's a bit of a lift, I think, to go to a summer camp like this. But they choose to do it because they love it. They have an opportunity to influence future generations, and they take it.
So for each week, then you would have, if vocal music is all throughout the camp, the summer, then would you have a different instructor each week?
Typically, yeah. We try for most of our larger programs to bring in a guest conductor. So someone who's kind of that figurehead person that all the campers will get to work with. And then we also will have specialists on each one of the instruments or, specific disciplines that campers are signed up for. So for example, this week we've got our orchestra week happening. So we have some guest conductors for orchestra, but then we also have violin specialists and viola, cello, bass, specialists for each one of the wind instruments. So we make sure that our campers get both that broad view and experience working with the guest conductor, but then also the really specialized work with the professional on their instrument.
Well, tell me
go ahead.
How are the students selected?
Yeah, so students self-select. Our camp is open to everyone, and we definitely know that our audience is typically students who are in music programs already, or dance or art or drama programs in their normal everyday life. And then we aim to, work with them and kind of help supplement, I think, some of their normal everyday experiences. And it's pretty cool because summer is typically a time of not learning for kids. And so when they come to summer camp, they get to have fun, they get to hang out with their friends, but they also learn so much. And so we keep them engaged throughout the summer.
Well, when talking about the International Music Camp and in aligning it with the 1950s, it's a rich history. And how did that International Music Camp get started?
That is a fun story to get to tell you about, Janine. So, we're going to overshoot, go back to the 1930s. Back then, as part of the CCC project, the Roosevelt administration, the Peace Gardens was formed as this celebration of the fact that Canada and the United States have the friendliest border in the world, and it's the longest border. And so it was meant to be this place kind of celebrating the friendship between our two countries. And the Boy Scouts at that time showed up for the opening ceremonies. And one of those Boy Scouts was a guy named Merton Utgaard. And he was there for the opening ceremonies for the Peace Garden and kind of, saw it from its inception. And then he went on to his career, which was being a professional musician, a professional band teacher, was teaching in Indiana at the time, and decided, I really want to start a camp, but where should I do it? And so he and his wife kind of talked through all the options, vetted some ideas with his friends, and came up with the idea of we need to have a lake. And one place I know that has a lake is at the International Peace Garden back where I was when I was a boy. And so he came back to North Dakota and decided we're going to give this a shot. And kind of decided, if we have 100 campers that first year, then we're going to, we'll call it a success. We'll be ready for the next year. If we don't, we won't. And, up until about the day of registration, they did not have 100 campers. So they were all kind of thinking this won't happen. And then the day of registration, they had an extra 20 or so campers show up, and they crossed that 100, person mark. And the rest is history. Here we are 68 years later. And that first year, I should say, was in 1956, which is
okay.
big.
And so, you can't just say I want to have a camp. You have to have buildings to house these kiddos and somehow to feed them, and just the facilities themselves. How did those all come into being, and who was responsible for the finances of these? And is it in the North Dakota, is in the United States side or the Canadian side?
Yeah, so it is in the United States side. We are south of the 49th parallel. But one of the other things I think that was pretty attractive about this location for Dr. Utgaard is the fact that it had, because the CCC had been involved in making the gardens, it still had old CCC barracks and an old CCC dining hall lodge that were used to house and feed all of the men. And rather than tearing it down, they just left those up. So for the first several years, that was the dormitory that the campers stayed at. They would have rehearsal on our IMC campus and then walk about a half mile down the road to the dining hall. And that's where they would have their dance. They would have outdoor concerts, so nothing else happened there other than eating and dance night. But when you look at old photos of the camp, you see kind of the evolution of starting out in some of those CCC barracks days. I think there were even a few times where they had like canvas tents and, giant canvas tents that they would put up for classroom and teaching spaces for some of the programs, because there just weren't a lot of facilities there.
You don't happen to have any old photos at your fingertips, do you?
Not at my fingertips, unfortunately, but we do have, several historical books that people have put together over the years. So if you're interested in that, just let me know a mailing address so we can pop those in the mail to you.
Oh, fun. And so Dr. Utgaard came in back from Indiana then to start this camp. Did he focus on a certain area of the arts, or were there certain areas that he really thought were important to study in a week-long camp?
Yeah. So when we started, we had 2 programs that you could do. They were band and baton twirling. And if you didn't do band or baton twirling, you couldn't come to the International Music Camp. And then after about a year or two, the program started to expand. And now today, 68 years later, we have over 45 programs that we offer for young people. And so there's, some really general ones like band, choir, orchestra. And then, like I said earlier, there's also some very specific programs. We have a hip hop dance program. We have a jazz tap theater program. We have cartooning. We have sculpture. There's so many different ways and different levels of interest and focus for our kids and our campers to be engaged here at camp.
Do you have those camps for alumni too?
We do. We actually do. So one of the cool things that started maybe 20 years or so ago is the adult camp. And that's for folks 21 and older. We have about I think we have 180 this year. Adults who kind of take 4 days off and they come hang out with their friends. They make music, sing in choir, play in band, orchestra, fun. All those things.
Neat.
So, one question, do you still have baton featured?
We don't, unfortunately. That one I think kind of went by the wayside.
It did, yes.
But it was really big back in '56.
Yes, Janine and I took twirling lessons in our youth. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, very, very basic. Very basic.
Yeah. So
going into the camp season, do you find that kids are excited to send in their registrations to camp? They're all ready to go. They want a room with certain people, or how does that work? Do you match them up?
Yeah. So yes, the first question is that, yeah, a lot of our returning campers especially are stoked to come back to camp. And they tell us year after year, like, this is all my friends and I talk about all year long is what happened at camp and what's going to happen at camp the next year and what we're going to do and the programs we're going to take and all of those things. So we know that the International Music Camp is a huge part of summer for all of those students. I'm going to cough here. So one sec.
Mhm.
Okay.
Sorry
We
about
didn't
that.
hear
That's
No
okay.
problem. Didn't mean to
All
hear
right.
that.
Good
Mhm.
deal. So the second thing is that when we have new campers who come to IMC for the very first time, we're out talking about the camp constantly every spring, and we find that there's young people out there who, you know, are just thrilled at the fact that they get to go to summer camp, but they get to just be surrounded by other people like them who love music, who love dance, art, whatever their passion is. It's just really amazing that there's a summer camp for them. They can do that. And so we love being able to support that and be a place for them. It's pretty awesome. In terms of the roommate question that you had, Janine,
Mhm.
campers can request their roommate, and they get an opportunity if they're going with friends. They can hang out together. But sometimes campers also are like, you know what? I just want to meet someone new. I want to see how this experience is going to go, and
Mhm.
um, it both are awesome, and we're happy to facilitate both of them. So yeah.
Do you ever turn down students because you just have the capacity has been met?
We have had to in the past. In recent, maybe the last decade, we've been pretty good at spreading out all of our registrations over the programs that were available.
Mhm.
But, there have been times when we have literally run out of beds. We just don't
Mm.
have,
Yeah.
beds for you. So we have a wait list if that's the case. And we do
Uh-huh.
have a couple programs where they're really popular. And so we cap them at X number of campers, and if that amount is filled, then we have people on wait lists for that.
Mhm.
Are there other activities that the kids do at camp other than music activities?
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities for kids to just be outside and have fun. We have a huge green space and mall rec area. So basketball, foursquare, frisbee. I was eating lunch today and watched a group of high school boys out playing ultimate frisbee. And so there's a lot of free time and chances to burn off some of that energy and just be outside. There's also a gift shop and a concession stand, and then middle of the week, we allow the campers to go down to the formal gardens at the International Peace Garden,
Oh.
which, for those that maybe are not familiar, we're right on the Peace Gardens is centered on the 49th parallel. And so if you go down to the formal gardens, the 49th parallel runs right through it. And the Peace Gardens does a beautiful job of planting perennials and annuals and kind of this big floral display that's a mirror image of each other on north and south of the border, and
Mm.
is a really gorgeous place. So the campers get a chance to go down there. They get some ice cream and check out the Peace Chapel, and it's a good trip for them.
And you can stand in two countries without having to have a passport.
Absolutely, absolutely. Two countries at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, prior to starting our recording our fun chat, we commented on your shirt, your tie-dyed shirt. Can you tell us about that and even
Yeah.
show us that?
So this is my Tie-Dye Tuesday shirt, which when you run a summer camp, Tie-Dye Tuesday is like a national holiday every week. So you got to make sure you got your gear ready. And we have a couple staff members that really they go for it, man. Like they have tie-dye socks, tie-dye pants, tie-dye shirts, tie-dye hats. Like we really lean into Tie-Dye Tuesday, but that's part of the fun of being a summer camp.
Sure. So what is the importance of summer camp to students these days?
It is so important. I feel like I could talk for hours at you, Jackie, about why I think summer camp is important, but
Yeah.
I'll try to keep it short. Summer camp builds resilience, it builds self-confidence, and it gives our young people an opportunity to succeed and fail and try all sorts of things in a
Mhm.
really, really safe environment. We find from our campers, and mostly from our camper parents actually, that when our campers come home from a week of camp, they usually have a little better understanding of an appreciation for what they have. They have a better understanding of other communities, other people, a little more empathy. And those are all, whether it's IMC or other summer camps, like those are all really great takeaways. So I am a firm believer. I mean, I love our camp and I think our camp is amazing and would love everyone to come here. But if you can't make it here, go to any summer camp. It's just such an incredibly important experience.
It is. Okay.
Tim, is the European tour choir and band still part of the International Music Camp?
It is not. That was affiliated with us through about the 80s, and then when Dr. Utgaard retired, he had been organizing that for decades, and that portion of the IMC experience kind of moved with him. So it's changed names now. I think it had been Northern Ambassadors for a while, and then kind of rebranded in the last year or two as well. So there's still some opportunities for high school age students to go over to Europe, but in terms of the tours that the International Music Camp used to host, we aren't affiliated with those anymore.
And when did Dr. Utgaard start those?
I feel like it was the early 60s that he would have put that together. And, you know, it was such a legacy. I think every day run into at least one person who says, you know, I was on this tour, I did this. Like, oh, you're with the music camp, I was on this band. And yeah,
you just ran into one right here.
Yeah, was it you, Janine, or Jackie?
Yeah. Yes, it was me. Yeah, what an experience that was. Between my senior year in high school and my freshman year at a university at NDSU, yes, it was quite an amazing summer. From that time, I think we were gone a month or 6 weeks, and then all of a sudden the next week there I was in Fargo with that new experience too. But it was great. And I think at the time that there were 3 of us from Bismarck High School who auditioned for the choir and were accepted into the European tour choir. So it was a really neat experience. I kind of think maybe there was someone in band too. I cannot recall right now, but one of the most awesome things that I can remember from that experience was the last song that was performed. It was wherever we were in European cities was, and oftentimes they were in outdoor amphitheaters, was the Battle Hymn of the Republic, when the band would play it and the choir would sing it. And it still gives me chills to think about it. It was such a rewarding experience, and it's a wonderful feeling of patriotism to be representing the United States of America over in Europe.
So that brings a question: is there a song, or are there songs that are associated with the Peace Garden? Like, is there something at the last concert? There's a last song of the concert, the summer concert. Anything special, or does it depend upon the director?
Yeah, we don't have anything traditionally in place in terms of like you're for sure going to close your concert with this. But I will say we do start all of our concerts, whether it's band, choir, or orchestra, with the national anthems of the 2 countries. So we always kind of give that nod to the fact that we're on the border. We want to equally appreciate and represent both Canada and the US, which is kind of cool too, because oftentimes, you know, the American kids don't know the Canadian national anthem at all. And so this is their chance to learn it or learn the lyrics to it. So
do you have Canadian students as well?
We do. Yeah, about 40% of our campers are Canadian.
Okay. Yes. I know at the time that I was there, the conductors were university teachers in music and the arts. And the influence that my conductors had on me was such that if I were to have gone into music, I probably would have followed them to where they taught at universities. And do you find that students still feel that way too?
Yeah, absolutely. Every week, all the time. And that is one of the really cool things about camp. You know, I can think of one clarinet player from North Dakota in particular who worked with a guest conductor here during one of his weeks at camp, and then followed her out to Colorado, and is now has stayed through his undergraduate degree, and I think he's pursuing his master's or maybe even his doctorate in performance. He just really appreciated that experience and opened up so many doors to him. You know, coming from small town North Dakota to just have those opportunities and connections that he wouldn't normally have.
Well, and I think too, it speaks. It's a feeling of pride too for the parents, and how they have gotten, you might say, gotten their
children to this point in their lives, and to move on to the next step of having an experience of the International Music Camp. It was wonderful. It's just a little boost. Do you find too that a greater percentage of your students are from North Dakota?
Yeah, so we probably have 60% of our campers do come from North Dakota, or kind of the one state, communities bordering North Dakota. And we love being able to be a part of that. And I think as I reflect on kind of what it means to live and be a North Dakotan, for all intents and purposes, I think the International Music Camp is just an incredibly important and unique experience that kind of defines for a lot of our young people what it means to grow up here. My parents live elsewhere, and even, gosh, I think my father-in-law flies a lot for work, and he always wears his IMC sweatshirt, and pretty much every time he's in an airport, he has someone stop him who's like, oh yeah, that was part of my experience as I was a kid. Like, I went there. And so it really is kind of a unifying experience in a really positive way for all of the young people who grow up in our communities here in North Dakota.
Tim, you have a range of maturity levels from ages 10 through 19 in those camps. So here's a 10-year-old. How accomplished does this 10-year-old have to be to come into the camp and excel or feel like they fit in with someone who's 18, 19 years old?
Yeah. So, nuts and bolts, like real cut and dry, we do ask for most of our programs that they have 1 to 2 years of experience, just so that no one's going to get completely, blown away by how much learning happens. Because in a day at camp, you're probably playing or being involved with music maybe as much as you would be in about 2 weeks in your normal everyday life. And so it's just a really consolidated and intense experience. And one thing that I'm really proud of with camp too is that, young people experience things at whatever level they need to. And so if it's a 10-year-old who's like, all right, I'm going to be brave, I'm going to go away from mom and dad for the first time, and I'm going to hopefully learn some things, like, we've got that experience for them. Or if they're the 18-year-old who's like, all right, again, real example, I performed for a national, public radio television show recently, and I still want to be challenged. And this faculty member that comes to camp really pushes me, and I'm so excited to work with them and then go off to study piano performance next year. That experience is there for everyone. And one of the cool things about having that age range is that our young students are seeing what their future can look like. And they really have some attainable goals set in front of them of like, okay, well, I can do what that 12-year-old is doing, and I can do what that 13-year-old is doing. And and like, there always is that example of the better player, the person to challenge them, to encourage them to do better. And then they, I also love the fact that they take all of that information and experience home with them, and then they challenge all of their peers. And so it really is water that kind of raises all ships when campers come to IMC, regardless of what age.
Have you ever had many young people who have been so homesick that they needed to leave?
Oh yeah, all the time. And that's just kind of a normal occurrence. We do our best to kind of coach parents through the idea that this is a learning experience and opportunity, and these are some of the things that you can do to kind of help prep your child to be ready and away from home for a week. But inevitably, sometimes people get sick, sometimes people just really are not ready for the camp experience for any variety of reasons, and it's a bummer, but it's also the reality when we work with 1,300 to 1,500 young people of a variety of experiences. We're ready for anything.
We've had one Fun Chat guest who had as a youngster went to a music camp, and he said, I left my appendix there. He had to be hospitalized for a while, and then when he got better, he just joined the activities again.
Wow,
that was interesting. Where would the closest hospital be?
It's about 45 minutes away in Botno is typically the closest ER.
So that earlier you mentioned a lake. Is it? And do the students ever get to experience the lake?
So the lake that our campers used to go to several decades ago, I think now, is in Canada. And back at that time, border crossing was a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the requirements of passports now to get into the U.S. from Canada or Canada from the U.S. makes it a little bit more cost prohibitive for us to take campers up there to swim at the lake. So unfortunately, we don't have a lake option anymore, which is a bummer. But usually we just say it's a lake-free week, and you can go swim the rest of the time.
Yeah. How far is Lake Minnegoshi from you?
Oh, that's probably about 30 minutes, maybe.
Oh, relatively close.
Yeah.
When are registrations due for your camps?
Yeah, so our registration starts as early as October 1st. And then campers can register anytime up until about a week before we get started. And really, they can register up to a day before we get started. We just make them call in that last week so that we are aware of, like, okay, we've got more people coming in. No one kind of sneaks in under our radar.
Neat. How do other music camps throughout the country have this same enriching experience with not only music but other activities?
Yeah, so there's a variety of music camps that are out there. Some of them are independent music camps, like the International Music Camp. Some are affiliated with churches or with universities. But regardless of the affiliation or even the institution, I think there are camps across the country for folks like this, and it's a really beautiful and awesome opportunity for campers, again, to make those friends, those relationships that are going to be really lasting and enduring, but then also get some validation of, like, yeah, you're doing exactly what you should do. There's other people just like you out there, and it's a great way to spend a week or more in the summer.
Knowing what you know now and the experiences you've had as the camp director for a number of years, would you rather, maybe I shouldn't say that, maybe I should, let's say, compare the responsibilities of a camp director when the camp first started to what you do now?
Boy, that is a great question. I think that from 1956 to 2024, a lot has changed in the world. And so I would hope that we wouldn't camp director the same way. Whoops, sorry. We wouldn't camp director the same way as we did in 1956, or vice versa. Just because the kids, families, the communities, everything is very, very different.
Sure.
I think one thing that I am really proud of is the fact that, Christine and I work really, really closely with a lot of the families that come to camp with our campers. We know a lot of them by name. We're really involved in putting together so many of the great experiences that our campers have. And we work really closely with our staff to make sure that not only do our staff do a great job for our campers, but our staff also are experiencing growth, and it's a positive experience for them to work here. They get something out of it as future music educators, as professional musicians. We want them to leave thinking this is a really phenomenal experience as well. So those are the things that I'm most proud of. I don't know what Dr. Utgaard and his wife Noella, what their priorities were. I know they were great and the perfect people for the time, and just really left a remarkable legacy. And so Christine and I are really honored to kind of be able to take the baton from. We're now, I think, the fourth set of camp directors in the 68-year history. So to take the baton from the folks that have come before us and grow and change as we need to make sure that the camp stays relevant.
So in 2013, you probably didn't have the number of cell phones at camp as you do now. How do you handle that?
Yeah. So we are a no cell phone camp. Part of that is just logistics of the fact that we're on the border. And so the US and Canada both have awful reception. But then
Bravo! That's good.
the other thing is, from that, and we tell our campers, this is summer camp. Like, this is your chance, your time to unplug. It's not even your chance to unplug, but you should just turn your phone off, put it away. It's not needed here. You don't need to have it. Let's just have a great experience hanging out with people face to face. You know, and in 2013, I think our campers usually had a really difficult time of being away from their phone for a week. And nowadays, you know, some of the more direct discussions that we have about like the phone needs to be away actually come from our parents, or like talking with parents of campers who are really very used to parenting with cell phones and always being able to be in touch with their campers for pickup stuff and get information from them and confirm that they're okay and, you know, nothing bad has happened. And so for a lot of parents who have always had a cell phone and a child with a cell phone, summer camp is a really great experience for them too, to kind of trust their young people to make good choices for themselves and you know, again, help develop some independence and resilience in their kids.
Is the International Peace Gardens open year round?
Yes, they are, and they have got a variety of different programs and events that are going on throughout the year, kind of dependent on the season. One of the things that I love is that they have a couple of winter chalets available. There's staff housing in the summer, and then in the winter you can rent it for, you know, if you want to have a family vacation or just do a weekend of snow shoeing or cross-country skiing. They groom trails here, and so you can come up and just stay in one of those chalets and yeah, have a great weekend, kind of a winter staycation.
Sure. Tim, in closing, we're getting near our end time here. How do you feel that your experiences, you and your wife's experiences as camp directors, influence your teaching when you go back to Minot to teach music? Yeah.
That is also a huge question, Janine, and I could probably talk for hours about that too. But one of the things that I learn and am reminded of daily in terms of education is that if you see it, you can be it. And we have a really positive and encouraging group of faculty and staff, and we try our best to be role models for our young people as well. And just being surrounded and immersed in music and the arts and a culture of, you know, understanding and trying to meet new people and try new things and be brave and, you know, do difficult things really creates that sense of empowerment. And so when we go back home in the Minot community, both Christine and I are really involved in just being in the community, whether it's, you know, going out for dinner or going to concerts or playing in ensembles or leading ensembles or being in front of groups of people. We really want everyone to have some role models to look up to, and hopefully there's one or two people out there that feel like, oh wow, you know, Christine did that or Tim did that, I can do that too. And so we want to help everyone have that for themselves. So hopefully that wasn't too deep of an answer for you.
Well, for Jackie's and my experiences, having grown up in North Dakota and being involved in the arts, North Dakota is so blessed to be rich in the arts and people who want to pursue it and want to teach it and want it to carry on. It's just, it's a magnificent experience being a child growing up in North Dakota. At least we thought that. We think that.
And those experiences for me and for you as well have carried on through adult life. And, you know, we do musical things now that had we not had the experiences, we would not have had as rich a life.
That's right. So viewers, we have been visiting with Tim Baumann, who is the camp director at the International Music Camp on the border of Canada and the United States up in North Dakota and Manitoba. And it is a wonderful, wonderful experience. And Tim has enlightened us so enthusiastically about those camping experiences and the purposes of the International Music Camp. That was started at the International Peace Gardens by Dr. Merton Utgaard in 1956. So we hope you've enjoyed this wonderful chat that we've had with Tim. So Jackie, how can you close us out today?
Well, I just want to remind you about the book and go to www.whilethewindmillwatch.com and tell your friends, even your family, about this 1950s fun chat. Until next time, toodaloo.